live from London, and I do mean live. This is not pre-recorded. He's really there. Rich Eisen joining his own show. Rich, wonderful to see you. You want to say what's up to your boys in the studio here?
Yeah, what's up to all the boys in the studio? What's going on? Look at me. I have, I've got rapport with everybody. I'm Tom Pelissero.
You're not wearing a hoodie, though, Rich. Where's the hoodie?
I don't know. How are you guys doing?
Great,
What's
man.
going on?
Rich, how you doing?
Great.
How you feel?
Oh God, I am jet lagged out of my skull right now.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
I
absolutely. I'm in the stay up as late as I possibly can, so I don't snap awake at 1 a.m. and stare at the ceiling mode. Sure. That's where I'm at right now.
Well, take us through that, Rich. Your schedule. You, of course, are over there for Sunday's game, Vikings Jets, starting off your week in London. Just take me through the travel. How far into the sleep deprivation are you? Where do we stand?
I'm deep into that mode right now. I'm deep into sleep deprivation. But we're seeing the Vikings tomorrow and the Jets Saturday, and as part of the broadcast meetings. And then on Sunday, toe meets ball, 2:30 London time in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 right where you guys are in Los Angeles, California. I'm fired up. We saw some Vikings fans on the plane. Coming from Los Angeles. Nice. There were some Vikings fans coming from that direct flight from LA. Haven't seen too many Jet fans yet, but we're expecting to see a ton of them because usually New York teams, any Eastern Seaboard teams, it's a quick flight, little 5-hour jaunt. It's like flying to Seattle for some people on the East Coast. So expecting to see them, and I'm excited. I'm excited that everybody seems to got here healthy and ready to roll for week 5.
Also seems only fitting to have you on the call, Rich, for a Sam Darnold revenge game against the Jets. I want to play for a second here something that was a response from Sam Darnold to a question that was really framed because of what Kevin O'Connell said on this show last week. Let's play it.
More often than not, organizations fail young quarterbacks more than quarterbacks fail the organizations. Do you feel the Jets failed you in any way?
No, I think, I had a lot of opportunities in New York, and I always felt like I could have played better there.
So that was Mark Craig from the Minneapolis Star Tribune paraphrasing what Kevin O'Connell said on this very program. You hear Sam Darnold say that, Rich, your reaction?
Oh, he's taking the high road. There's no question the Jets failed him in many different ways. And, obviously they gave him the opportunity right from jump. And interesting, if you recall, his first pass as a Jet was a pick six, or his first drive ended in a pick six in Detroit on a Monday night, and then he actually wound up winning that game. And listen, it just didn't work with the Jets, where Todd Bowles was on the way out, and then Adam Gase is the one that came in, and Darnold kind of fell apart. In a way, and saw ghosts. That was something we talked about on our show the other day, that Belichick on the set of I guess we zoomed into the Manning cast and said that Darnold, everybody kind of believed in him except the Jets. Nice little passive aggressive broadside from Bill, and we were saying if you had to put a list together of people mostly responsible as to why things didn't work out for Darnold with the Jets, Belichick would be in the top 5, because the Patriots tormented him, and that's the team that caused him to see ghosts. He's taking the high road, and I kind of dig what Kevin O'Connell said on our program, that organizations fail young quarterbacks more than the other way around. And you need to have everything working. You need to have the proper play caller. You need to have a coach that has a full tenure with your organization and has firm footing to continue his coaching tenure there. You need to have an offensive line that can protect the kid. You need to have continuity everywhere. You need to have talent out wide. You need to have talent in the backfield. You need to have talent on defense. And that's part of the reason why things succeeded for Mark Sanchez in New York for the Jets, is they had the ground and pound, they had the defense, they had the running game, so he didn't have to win using his arm. He didn't have to come in like Jaden Daniels has come in or C.J. Stroud entered in Houston last year. So, yeah, the Jets weren't set up for Sam. Everybody hoped he could have been Mahomes-like, where he could overcome all of that. And not as if Mahomes overcame anything. He was set up perfectly. I guess I just use him as an example that people think could have succeeded anywhere. And I'm curious if we get Mahomes soon to ask him these questions as well. I just think he's taking the high road. Clearly, his performance was, as he said, he could have played better, but things weren't set up for him very well with coaching changes and having to take on Belichick before it was time.
When the Jets,
wouldn't you agree?
I mean, I would certainly agree with that. And I think that one of the unique things about the Sam Darnold story to me is it's one thing to struggle. It's one thing to just not be good enough as a player. It's a totally other thing, especially as a quarterback, to come back from when you are a punchline, when you are a laughing stock. And listen, everybody, you could go back, Rappaport and I broke that Sam Darnold was going to the Vikings at like 2 a.m. on the second day of free agency. If you go back and read the replies to that, everyone is laughing at the Vikings because it's Sam Darnold, because it's an easy target, because of seeing ghosts and all that. There's something to be said for having the intestinal fortitude to be able to come from there. Baker Mayfield, I think, did it too. Baker Mayfield, by the end in Cleveland and then the Carolina stint, he obviously, broke out with the Rams when he got there and had that remarkable performance on basically, no training whatsoever. But he came back and reestablished himself. Darnold never even had the playoff appearance. Darnold never had the debut, the run that Baker did after taking over for Tyrod Taylor. So to come from the absolute nadir of everything around you is telling you you're a failure and this is a joke. Your career, your life is a joke. To come back and play at this level, I just think it's highly impressive what Sam Darnold has been able to do, albeit over 4 games in a season that's 17 games long, and the Vikings hope more.
Yeah, 2 things off of that. Number one, Jared Goff's another one in this category here, who and laughingstock is the word. When he was acquired by Detroit, he was acquired by Detroit, and the Rams included first-round picks with the quarterback. You never hear that. Normally the first overall drafted quarterback who's taken a team, who's played in the Super Bowl with a team that is trading him away, that's sufficient enough of players involved in a trade, in a package. That's sufficient enough in a package, not to just include first-round draft choices on top of it with the salary, and everybody thought that he was a bust. And that he wouldn't last in Detroit. The Lions draft Hendon Hooker, and when that happened, it was because they still didn't believe in Goff. Look at him now. And he is a legit Super Bowl threat quarterback. He just had an 18 for 18 performance with 292 yards passing against the team that brought in a defense that did something that hadn't been done since the 1979 Steelers, which was go 3-0 in the first 3 games of a season, giving up 150 passing yards or fewer in each of the wins. And so, yes, there is a point in time where so-called discarded quarterbacks, given another opportunity, now have the ability to navigate a crucible of a playing season, of a fourth quarter, of a defense that's confusing. They have more neck-up ability. They have more I guess fire in the belly, chips on the shoulder. And these are quarterbacks that Geno Smith is another one. It was kind of a battle of that on Monday night. So we're seeing that. That's point number one. Point number two is I say Nader, not Nadir. That's the way I pronounce that word. And I'm wondering if the rest of the guys in the room know what that word even means.
No chance.
See, we had a long would you take a shot to pronounce a name that you aren't 100% confident in or say, and I think that everybody in the room was at like 99%, just don't say the name if you're not totally confident in it. This came off of Terrell Davis versus Terrell Owens, and whether I asked Terrell, did he ever confront Terrell over the name change that then confused the pronunciation of his name permanently, which he said he had no issue. He thinks it's a Southern thing. He was all right with it. But I took a shot with that word, which means the low point in essence, right?
The lowest point. Yes, the lowest point, the bottom. I go nadir.
According to Rich, according to Oxford Dictionary, both pronunciations are correct.
Well, how
Very
about
good,
that?
terrific. But I don't understand.
You're
Chris,
doing the British pronunciation there.
You're a former award winner, right? Of wordsmith.
Well, Rich, here's the deal, and I'm going to take a shot at the 207. You have to write for your audience. So I got to figure a lot of my readers in the 207 would know that word, and I don't want to appear highfalutin.
That's a little disrespectful.
You know what I mean?
So I write for kids.
that's your 207 elegy right there. Yeah, that's what you got right there.
What I mean?
I think
take a shot at the people you grew up around.
Yep.
That Stafford-Goff trade too, Rich. It's so fascinating to look back upon it because at the time, just to go through the logic of how that came together, Stafford had met with the team right after they had hired, even before they hired Dan Campbell, right after that season, and said okay, it's the right time for all parties to move on here. He was focused in, his wife was focused in on going to LA. They had to figure out what's the fair price. Jared Goff ends up in that deal, rather than just simply being released, in part because, of course, Brad Holmes, who's the GM of the Lions, had scouted Jared Goff. He really believed you could get back to that. Remember, Jared Goff had been to a Super Bowl. Stafford had never won a playoff game at this time. But the Lions had to take the Goff salary because it was guaranteed money. And absent that, if they had just had to release him, they would not have had the cap space to actually be able to pull off the Stafford trade. And now here you are, Stafford, who, listen, he won the Super Bowl. They absolutely got the most out of that trade. But Jared Goff is the quarterback of one of the best teams in football right now and got a contract extension on a guy who, if the cap circumstances, the contract circumstances were different, he might have gone to some other team. But it's the perfect fit with Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson calling the plays. So you've got the Jets-Vikings on Sunday morning. So you're going to be with the Vikings. I am curious very quickly before we move on from Sam Darnold. We know that from via our Mike Garafolo at the Broncos-Jets game last week that there was a fan who was yelling apologies to Zach Wilson from the stands during warmups. When you sit with Sam, do you intend to issue any type of an apology on behalf of the Jets organization?
No, absolutely not. I do not represent them. As you know, I'm going to be calling this game straight down the middle. I'm going to try and stripe this thing right down the fairway, 300 yards. And I do not represent the New York Jets organization or its fan base in any way this weekend. 0.0. And I'm actually excited to see him. The numbers he's put up are unprecedented. 4-0, 2 touchdowns in each of the wins. That's never happened in the Super Bowl era. He leads the league in passing touchdowns. He's been terrific. And the Jets defense has been terrific as well. So that's an interesting matchup, and I can't wait to see him. What's the latest on Davante Adams that you can, because this is something that we're obviously going to talk about during the broadcast for sure, as to the fact that you hear the Jets are front runners. Everybody thinks they're going to get him. I mean, what is your time? What's the timeline on this, Tom? If I could turn the tables of being the Q and you back to the A here.
Well, realistically, you got a player who Davante Adams has a legitimate hamstring injury. It's a 1 to 2 week injury. He obviously missed last week's game. He's not going to play this week, but this is not Jalen Ramsey with the back injury that magically healed after he got traded to the Rams some years ago. This is not Brandon Ayuk, who technically, as Kyle Shanahan continued to say, and I appreciated his consistency, well, he's got a sore back and a sore neck. That's why he's not practicing for all of training camp until he got a $30 million per year contract. This is a real injury for Davante Adams. He's making $1 million a week, basically, in base salary. So the idea that a new team's going to trade for him and pay him that $1 million this week when they know he's not going to play, it's probably going into next week. Doesn't mean necessarily it will. I would think that this resolves itself one way or another. I mean, certainly in the next 32 days or whatever we got to the trade deadline, but more than likely next week, simply because the price doesn't go up for the Raiders. If you don't trade him now, this is not an off-season trade where, hey, you can hold on to a guy and take it all the way to training camp. Every game that goes by without Davante Adams on the new team, the value to that new team goes down, particularly because Davante Adams' contract, he's got balloon numbers in 2025 and 2026. He's due over $36 million each year. You're going to have to redo this contract, or else this is a 10, 11 game type of rental. In addition to that, Davante Adams can essentially scuttle any deal by refusing to sign a restructured contract to help out with the cap consequences for a new team. All of which is to say, Davante Adams, he hasn't played the card yet, Rich, but at some point, if they try to trade him someplace other than where he wants to go, which the Jets are the number one choice that he has, he can say, you know what, I really want to be a Jet instead. I'm not going to sign any type of a contract adjustment to facilitate this deal, even for cap purposes. So at this point, we wait. The Raiders don't want to give him away. I don't sense that there's a great appetite for them even to eat a great deal of money to get a better pick. Right. And that all leaves us in a situation here where, again, Davante Adams can pull certain levers here. The lever the Raiders can pull is, we're not getting offered enough, we're not going to trade you. I do believe if he's not traded, he'll come back and play for the Raiders. He's not going to say for the next 8 weeks that he's got a hamstring injury. But every day here right now, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. They're engaged with several different teams. And we'll see if it's not the Jets that end up having that offer that the Raiders want to take here, whether or not Davante Adams is willing to pull any other levers or he accepts a trade to, let's say, New Orleans, which is another team he'd be willing to go to because of Derek Carr.
Well, but where did this come from, though? Guy has 9 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown, and a very exciting for the Vegas Raiders, rousing comeback win against Baltimore that few people expected, and then suddenly after blowing up everybody's survivor pool, it looks like Davante's the Raiders are in a survivor pool with Davante. Like what happened? Do we know what happened for him to say he preferred to be traded?
Well, they got blasted by Carolina the following week. So every time you have a loss like that, that's certainly part of the tapestry. The accidental liking of an Instagram post by Antonio Pierce on something that said loosely.
It was accidental? It was accidental?
It was accidental is my understanding. Listen, I said this on the show earlier, Rich. I've done that. I've got certain friends who communicate solely through memes on Instagram, and they'll send me something, and whether it's something political or it's an NFL meme, whatever, and I try to scroll
That's a heart
away,
button, though. When you take your thumb, so it's the scroll.
If you tap it in the wrong spot. Or you try it. It gets me a lot is when you try to expand the picture. So you go like this and you put your 2 fingers and you try to expand the picture and your thumb gets the heart button in the corner. So I empathize on that point
careful
with Antonio Pierce, but that just puts it into the public eye. And then Adams is doing a TV interview and says, various things, but he'd like to have answers on it as well. But this was always going to happen, Rich. That's the bottom line. Whether it was more likely that it was going to happen closer to the trade deadline. But think about how Aaron Rodgers has been working this. I believe that this all would have played out, not necessarily with Instagram, but this quite possibly would have played out last year if Aaron Rodgers doesn't get hurt 4 snaps into the season. Those two have a very close relationship, even though Davante Adams, once the Packers didn't do that deal for him back in 2021, basically said, you know what, I'm not going to take a deal to come back here. They could have done it in camp. Once that passed, I wasn't doing it. Rodgers comes back. I still want to go to the Raiders. And at that time, reunite with Derek Carr. It was always going to happen because Aaron Rodgers has remained in Davante Adams' ear, and I'm sure in his phone, trying to get him there. He said it publicly. There's a video from the golf tournament where he's saying, hey, I love Davante Adams, and I look forward to playing with him again. That's pretty, and listen, it's not tampering. Players can't tamper. You're allowed to talk to other players, but it's a pretty strong voice to continue to plant that seed. It just happened to get accelerated a few weeks before it otherwise would have happened.
He wasn't tampering, Tom. He was just
it's
inadvertently. No. He inadvertently scrolled past tampering, and he accidentally ticked the tamper button with his phrase. It was
I would also say this, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Tom Pelissero, but there are certain GMs in the league who, when this is going on, and when you clearly have Davante Adams being contacted by Aaron Rodgers, who would make a point to say, we'll trade you. We're not trading you there. You're not going to dictate. The other teams are not going to dictate. I don't believe that's the direction this is going. Again, we're still, even though this seems very accelerated here, Rich, and in the coming days, absolutely a trade could come together. We're still in the early stages of there's those different pressure points that can still be pushed here by all parties involved in it. For the Raiders, though, the bottom line is this. They want to get significant capital for a really, really good player, and they don't want to pay they don't want to do what the Broncos did with Von Miller a couple years ago, where you get a 2 and a 3 because you paid his whole salary other than the minimum. I don't really anticipate the Raiders doing that, at least not at this stage. And so if it ends up being a different team, if it's Buffalo or Pittsburgh or the 49ers, does Davante Adams want to go there to a place where he doesn't really know anybody? If not, does he scuttle the deal? There's a lot of different tentacles to this that we still got to see exactly how they unwind.
Well, here's the deal. TJ may not get Davante Adams. But
I keep leaving off the Cowboys, and he's getting madder and madder over there in the corner.
No, I know that. But he's got the Mets in a game 3. When is that? When's first pitch of that one? When's that happening? Later on?
Yeah, I want to say 7:30.
Okay. I think it's 4 Pacific.
And there's only one person on the screen who is a co-host of a top 20 podcast on iTunes this morning. That would be TJ Jefferson of No Contest Wrestling.
Hey, let's go.
O'Shea Jackson Jr.
That's just
top
too sweet.
20 on iTunes. Look at you, TJ Jefferson.
How about that?
CM Punk was trending earlier today on Twitter.
CM Punk, your interview, and that's just half of the interview you did with him.
Woo.
So
you released a 2-part interview?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
why not? People are like,
You and O'Shea.
People were getting upset in the comments. They're like, we want the second half. I'm like, you'll get it next week, baby. Just,
God, you're reading the comments.
No, the comments are great, Rich. These comments are
Rich,
excellent.
you know he's reading the comments.
course.
That doesn't surprise me.
I mean,
at
Rich,
all.
what do you think?
and of course, I'm going to read the comments when I know they're going to be overwhelmingly positive.
Good.
Like this.
They were. Yeah. So congratulations on that first foray. Everybody should get No Contest Wrestling.
And legitimately thank you for
YouTube
help
channel.
for making this happen.
All right, Rich.
Well, I mean, it's all good. It's all good.
Last thing for you, and then we'll let you get back to caffeinating or staring.
No, I
at
just know you've got.
faces.
I know you've got a pre-taped interview with me that you need to fit in.
True.
So
Devante Sabonis
I'd stay
going
out.
to be with
Dude,
us here.
this is great. You're
Surely.
keeping me awake. This is great.
Tom, by the way, I know Rich was up early because he texted me at 4:17 in the morning.
Yeah, what are you
Pacific
doing? Rich?
time. That was dinner over there, right?
Rich, what are you doing?
What do you mean? What am I doing? I'm in London, Mike.
No, at 4
Yeah, but
o'clock
you
in the
know what
morning, you're
time other
texting him.
people are at.
That's not right.
I'm assuming the phone is off. What are you talking about?
Let's say he doesn't have sleep mode on.
The thing is,
come on.
I was strangely up at that
He was up.
moment too.
He
But
doesn't
then
know
I-
he's
me.
sleep
I
mode.
fell right back
Money
to
and
sleep.
podcasts never sleep.
That's what I'm
okay?
talking about, Rich.
This is your wake-up call,
By the way,
pal.
give me the
That's
phone.
what I'm
Where's the phone?
I was
Brock?
up. That's the weird
right.
thing about it, Tom. I was awake, but then I fell right back.
I'm
to
doing business. I've got an empire to run here.
Yeah, you know what? You got
From both sides of the Atlantic,
You're
Mike.
internationally
Okay?
I
known,
get
baby.
it, but it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. What are we doing?
All right, Rich.
Even I don't do that.
Godspeed.
Yeah.
Stay healthy. Eat some good food.
Greatly.
Good luck with the sleeping. I'm sure the next sleep
We'll
you
chat
have
tomorrow.
will be a
We'll
glorious
chat
one.
tomorrow.
I'll talk to you tomorrow. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll chime in. What's more likely? Get you set for the London game. Everything else. We'll chat soon. Thanks again.
Week 5
Wow,
in bulk,
yeah.
beginning very early with that guy right there, Rich Eisen.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.